Just Minding My Business Radio, where we are moving at the speed of God, learning what we didn't know we didn't know. I'm your host, Ida Crawford.
And I'm your co-host, Ruth Haskins.
So grab a pen and paper and get ready for information that you can use.
Welcome to Just Minding My Business Media. This day was an opportunity to exercise your ability to make good choices, the outcomes of which will benefit yourself and others. Do you have a message you want to share with the world? Contact us, Just Minding My Business Media, at jmmbradio@gmail.com. Today we have with us Ria Story, who is a motivational leadership speaker, TEDx speaker, and author of 13 books, including Leadership Gems for Women. She is a certified leadership speaker and trainer. Ria founded Fearfully and Wonderfully Me, empowering women to become the leaders they are destined to be. Ria shares powerful leadership principles and tools of transformation from her journey to equip and empower women, helping them maximize their potential in life and in leadership. Welcome, Ria.
Thank you. It's just my pleasure to be here. It's a privilege.
Absolutely. Welcome again. And we're going to know how you got on this road. What inspired you?
Really, it all started back in 2013. I heard motivational speaker Les Brown speak, and he was speaking to a room full of people. But he said, you have a story to tell, and someone needs to hear your story, and only you can help that person. And I knew I had a story to tell, but I didn't want to tell it. I was a victim of sexual abuse. My father started sexually abusing me when I was 12, and it progressed as I got older and as he got bolder. And by the time I was 17, he was regularly having sex with me and would bargain with me for favors in exchange for something like a night out with my friends. And he always said he wanted to give me the ultimate experience in life. And that looked like a lot of different things. Sometimes it was taking nude photographs of me. Sometimes it was beating me black and blue with a riding crop. And sometimes it was trafficking me to men he would meet off the internet. And there were times when life was almost not worth living. And I thought about it. I thought about a tub of warm water and a razor blade. And I left home at 19. I left behind the father who'd abused me for years and the mother who blamed me for it. And I didn't have anything when I left home. I didn't have a job. I didn't have a car. I didn't have a high school diploma. I'd never been to school. I'd been homeschooled my whole life. But at 19, I met a knight in a shiny Camaro. And 20 years later, we've long since gotten rid of the Camaro, but I kept him. I married him. And I didn't talk about my story after I left. I didn't want to talk about it. I didn't want people to see me as a victim. Beyond a few family members and friends, I didn't talk about it to anyone until I heard Les Brown speak. And I realized that if I could take what happened to me and help inspire even one person to just realize that what happens to us is not as important as who we become because of it. It gave me a purpose. And, I say that's the difference between a career and a calling. And I discovered my why, my purpose.
Wow, that is a story.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a lot of women's story. So I know that you are definitely making a difference because many women share that same story. And, they're either going through it right now or getting ready to go into it, or coming out of it. And that's the three situations that you find yourself in life. And being that light that you are is a courageous move, number one. Number two, I know it took a while to get to this place. Mm-hmm. So can you talk a little bit about how you ended up getting to this place for our listeners and viewers that may be going through similar and want to know, how do I get past this?
Sure. So in 2013, when I heard Les Brown speak, I was working. I had gone and gotten my GED and then started community class in college and worked through the years, worked my way up. And I considered myself to have a successful career at the time, considering particularly where I'd come from. But because I wouldn't talk about what happened to me, that's really not true healing, right? It's surviving, it's getting by day. And I was successful. But I like to say that until we're ready to own what happens to us, it owns us. And that was the case for me. Until I was willing to share it and talk about it, it still had power over me. And that's a journey of healing I think we all get to in different ways, perhaps over time. For me, it was I talk about this a lot in my newest book, Fearfully and Wonderfully Me, because really you're seeing the me now 20 years after leaving home, right? And it's a transformation from a trafficking victim to speaking this year at the US Capitol and speaking on a TEDx stage. Right, there's a lot of transformation. And what I like to talk about is the foundation of it begins with number one, just that self-belief, right? Believing that first, I can't control what happens, but I always have the power to choose how I respond to what happens, right? That self-belief, that internal sense of control that says I can do something in me. If nothing else, I can always control me. Now, it's not easy, right? We all have bad days and troubling times, and bad things happen. But we always have the power to choose how we respond. And that's true freedom, right? That means that, joy isn't a product of our circumstances. It's a choice that we make. And that means nobody else can make you have a bad day, right? Mm-hmm. We don't always like the things that happen, certainly, and we can't control everything that happens, but it's power when we can control our response, our emotional response to that. So that's the first thing. Then I think that the second thing is that is the foundation for realizing that we have the power to choose our response. Then we are responsible for the choices that we make. And that's why it's powerful, because when we have that foundation of self-belief, that opens the door for a sense of self-worth, which is I have value in and of myself. I'm not what happens to me, but I am a product of my choices. And then from there, we can grow on to self-love, right? Which is going to create the foundation for self-care and self-respect and self-discipline and self-development. And I think it all starts with that self-belief of first, I can control me here up in my mind.
Mm-hmm. And I have to agree with you on that because, as a certified life coach, when I first learned that I can control things, it was like, really? Because before I got involved with the coaching arena, I just let things just happened and I just was all over the place. Mm-hmm. No control, no anything. And then after being introduced to personal development and really learning how much control I really did have, it was so eye-opening. Mm. It was so eye-opening. And I was like, happy as a lark. I can control? Oh my goodness. Mm-hmm. and it's one of those things you're not taught at home. Mm. Like parenting from my era, you weren't taught that.
Oh, of course not.
Weren't taught any of that. That didn't come into play until I'm well into my adulthood. Mm. Already gone through the trials and tribulations of life and not understanding why I was always feeling out of control, for lack of a better word. Mm-hmm.
So, go ahead. Go ahead. No, I'm just agreeing with you. I think that's one of the marvelous things that's happening since I came into my adulthood is the fact that more and more people are recognizing that we are more than we appear to be, and we have the ability to tap into that. We were never taught that we are more than what we appear to be. You know, we're given a set of rules, the way life was supposed to be and how we're supposed to live it. And now people like yourself are beginning to tell people, you know, you do have control. It's not about what has happened to you. Those things can't be changed, but you can do the internal work and get a grip. And then, because the transformation doesn't come from the outside, comes from the inside out. So it's wonderful to hear that. And I'm sure many people right now need to hear that, you know, because they're caught in situations. COVID-19 has been unkind to people, and the fact that they are trapped in situations in which they feel they have no control. And I cannot remember the man's name, but there was a man who lived through the Holocaust. And one of his great realities when he was in, I think it was Auschwitz.
Viktor Frankl.
Yes, indeed, that's it. And that was his awareness. He said, they can do anything they want, but they can't control who I am. That's something that I can never let go of, unless I decide to let go of. And I've always thought that that was wonderful. So I hear that you've heard of him too. It's a wonderful place to be.
Yes. And you know, that really is, you know, he talks about they could take everything from him except the greatest freedom, the ability to choose my attitude in my circumstances. And it really is freeing. Now it's like anything, it's almost a skill we have to develop, right? We don't just suddenly have that thought and then wake up tomorrow and it's easy to do. But much like our physical muscles, we can get stronger over time in practicing this, right? We're human beings and we have emotions, pain, fear, anger, or something like that. But when we're choosing our response, we realize that the emotions are there, but they don't always serve us well in responding to them. It's Andy Stanley, I think, who said, our feelings are terrible leaders, right? We're human. We have the emotions. There's nothing wrong with that. But it's that taking that moment and saying, pause, let me choose how I respond. Because I bet I'm not the only one who's said or done something in the moment and then later gone, wow, I wish I hadn't have said or done that.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. That's one of my favorite little poems by Carl Sandburg, one of his shortest ones. And it talks about how proud words come out of your mouth. And once they're out, you can't call them back. They're on their way. You cannot call them back. But along those lines, what about the self-talk that we give to ourselves? Can you talk to us about that?
Oh, absolutely. You know, it's interesting you bring that up. My husband and I were speaking today to a group, and one of the things we talk about is our self-talk. See, we as people may not listen to other people around us, but we always are listening to the voice of ourselves, right? You can't get away from that. And the thing about that is that the thoughts that we think determine how we feel. And then how we feel determines what we do. What we do influences our circumstances or our outcomes. So it all comes back to what thoughts are we choosing? And we do choose them. Not always intentionally. Sometimes they drift in, but we choose whether to let them stay there or whether to redirect them to something more positive. It's Oprah Winfrey who tells us what we focus on expands. And we're all going to have situations where things go wrong. My story is unfortunately not that uncommon, but it's not everyone's story. But every single one of us experience adversity. And so learning how to deal with that and say, yeah, this thing happened or this thing happened and I don't like it. And maybe it's a terrible, bad thing. But how can I look for the positives out of it? I love the concept. You've heard the term, I know, of post-traumatic stress. So I like to think of that as, I mean, certainly there can be post-traumatic growth, right? We can grow after times of adversity. But I also love the concept of pre-traumatic growth. What if we grow and develop ourselves and our mindset before we get to those situations that challenge us, so that we're able to overcome them with a little more ease? Yes. So it's a daily journey.
Yes, it is.
I like that thought.
I like that thought a lot. And like I said before, had I understood the power that I truly had, which is what a lot of people don't understand. They have that power. And it's not that adversity is going to continue to happen for all of our lives. That's just the way it is. That's just life. But being able to develop that response instead of reaction is huge.
Yeah.
It's certainly huge. So I'm glad you're talking about that, because that's crucial.
It is. And, along those lines, you talk about pre-traumatic stress, building up that muscle. I look at it in this country as very difficult for young ones to do, even in their early teens or, their early 20s, because we have grown up in a very, let's say it, spoiled situation. We're spoiled. We have had so much, and we don't know what adversity is like unless we listen to those who went before us. So you have those who are Holocaust survivors. You have those who have a strong family history and they remember slavery maybe through their great grandmother, and they're passing those stories down so that people can talk about, what it was like during World War I or World War II to not have. And yet, they survived, they're still here. So that is part of that post-traumatic stress training, that we pass down our stories, and that the younger generation sees them as valuable, and that they can learn from them. Because certainly I know I listen to my family stories, and I still have that. My mother was raised during the Depression. So there were things that I learned from her about just surviving, like in times like this. What do? You may have greens during good times and you can pull all the leaves off and not eat the stalks. But in bad times, you chop up those stalks, you eat everything. Okay.
Gratefully.
You gratefully.
Yes.
Yeah. Yes, it's that sort of thinking, and so have you talked about or spoken about that aspect of other people's stories and how they're so important, especially to our young people right now? This is a traumatic time for children and young adults because their life has been literally upended. They don't have a point of reference anymore.
Absolutely. What's interesting about this day and age is you're exactly right. We, particularly up until this year, a lot of the younger generation, if you want to call it that, we want to give our children, a lifestyle that they don't have to struggle. And yet realizing that sometimes the struggle is what helps us mature and helps us grow. You've heard the analogy, I'm sure, of the caterpillar turning into the butterfly, and it's the struggle to break free of the cocoon, right, that helps it develop. So I like that concept, and you're absolutely right. But what's cool about today's time and age is we have access to so much information and stories, and we can learn from the people who've gone before us, right? I tell people, if you look around and you don't see anyone who's lifting you up in your circle, then go get a book or go, watch a TED talk, or there's so much access to information out there that does help encourage us, and we can learn from those lessons and those stories. I tell people I married my husband for his last name. It's not true, but if you're going to be a speaker, you need a last name like Story, because we tell a lot of stories because they're powerful. They speak to the subconscious, which is emotional. And so people can learn without feeling judged.
Absolutely.
Oh, that's a powerful statement.
You
were saying about getting the stories out. The fact that stories speak to the subconscious without making people feel some kind of way, that's very important. Because I think sometimes we think our stories are so, either we think they're unimportant because we're not focusing on them, we're running away from them, or we think, oh my gosh, what are people going to think about me? It's not about us. It's about the people that could be helped by them. And they don't have to feel judged if we're telling our story, because the light is on us. And then they get to just sort of like, oh, okay, I'm not alone in the world.
Yes, absolutely. So before we move any further, how can people get in touch with you?
The best way to get in touch with me is on my website, riastory.com. So it's riastory.com. I'm also on social media, LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. You can certainly follow me there, but reaching me is the best way. You can find more information on my podcast, programs, books, and that kind of thing from the website. So that's the best place.
Okay. Well, speaking of books, let's talk a little bit about your book, and that directly connects to your organizations. So you want to talk a little bit, it's Fearfully Wonderfully Me.
Fearfully and Wonderfully Me. The subtitle is Become the Woman You Are Destined to Be. And really, I think I talk about powerful, what's powerful in our personal growth and transformation is realizing that what happens to us doesn't determine us. There's always our choice of how it's going to affect us, but it does influence us. Mm-hmm. But part of our personal growth and development and transformation comes when we recognize that and we embrace what has influenced us in becoming the woman that we are today. It doesn't mean we have to like it or that it was a good thing, but recognizing that some growth came from it or that it's enabled us to do something different or see a perspective different. So it's part of embracing the concept that I, as a person, have worth, right? That I am fearfully and wonderfully made. And in this instance, fearfully means awesomely. Mm-hmm. And I meet so many women who've been through something. And it's unfortunate, but sometimes we fall into what I call the victim mindset, where we start blaming what we've been through and using that as an excuse for why we can't accomplish our dreams or go on and be the best version of ourselves. And as long as we're blaming someone or something else, we're giving up our power to change it. It's Hal Elrod that said, the moment I accept responsibility for everything in my life is the moment I can change anything in my life. Mm-hmm. Right? Not that everything is my fault, because it's not, but I'm the one who's responsible for, changing it, for improving myself and my circumstances. And that's where a lot of our growth comes from, is recognizing we've got to take ownership of that. Then, absolutely, we are each and every one of us individual and special and unique and gifted in so many different ways. But that also comes with responsibility to steward that well. And it means taking ownership of the choices that we make that don't honor that stewardship, and some that do, absolutely. So learning not to beat ourselves up for our mistakes, but learning to grow from them and to overcome them. And it's a journey. It's a lifetime journey. We're not going to wake up one day and be there, wherever there is. But becoming the best version of ourselves is stepping into our potential and our passion. And it's powerful because, see, the thing is, I tell women this all the time, those dreams that you have inside you of whatever it is, whether it's starting your own business or going to college or becoming a parent, whatever it is, you have those dreams inside you because you are capable of making them come true. That's why they're in there. And doesn't mean it's going to be easy, right? It's going to take work. It's going to take sacrifice. It's going to take some time and effort. But you weren't given the dreams and then not the resources to figure out how to make them happen, given time. The only question is, how do we do it? How do we get there?
Yes, and then I think once you start pursuing, the answers come. They just come. When you're ready, they'll be right there waiting. Mm-hmm. And not until.
Once you take that first step, other things start falling into line. And all of a sudden you start seeing things lining up. And then it's like, oh, okay, thank you. Okay, I'll go take care of that. It's progressive, but getting past that hurdle of self, I'll put it that way, I'll say even the false self, which is a protection. It's what we use to protect ourselves. In this world. That is the first step. And that's what I hear you doing. You're helping people to make that first step to get outside of that false self, to break that shell that they've lived in, because it was the safest place. They don't feel safe in quote unquote the real world.
Absolutely. It's scary to be vulnerable, right? It's scary to be authentic and real, because then there's that fear of, well, what if people don't like what they see? And the thing is that we're never going to be able to make everybody happy. I've had some comments on social media, right, from people who are negative, and you know what? I can't let them bother me. They're not the person I'm talking to, right? And so we're not going to be able to make everyone happy. The key is living true to ourselves and who we are, and not forgetting to improve it, right? Not with pride, but just saying, you know what, I'm me and I'm working to get better. Michael Josephson says, you don't have to be sick to get better. And you think of the number one athlete in any sport, right? They're out practicing to get better. There's nothing wrong with them. They're just trying to get better. You don't have to be sick to get better. So I like to say, you know what? We are perfectly imperfect. Absolutely, we're human. We make mistakes. We have flaws. But there's nothing wrong with us. We just don't have to be sick to get better. So learning to start there and grow and say, you know what? I'm still under construction, and I'm okay with that.
That's right. And
Progress, not perfection.
Yeah, I'm saying it's always something to do different, always something to learn different, always something that's going to make you better, period. And it's okay. To me, it's fun because every day is an opportunity. Every day.
Yes.
So your organization, how do people connect with you to be a part of your organization? How does that look?
Well, it's not a nonprofit. It's really just me creating Fearfully and Wonderfully Me, starting with the books and the workbooks. And I've been teaching a lot of this material virtually, particularly this season of life where we've all had to learn how to do a lot virtually. And then in person, I do a lot of volunteer work with groups of young ladies who've been rescued, like from sex trafficking. And unfortunately, this area, Atlanta, is definitely a hub for that. And so it's been awesome to be able to see women from all across the country through the online sessions, and then even these younger girls just embrace the fact that they have value, and what happens to them doesn't have to define the rest of their life. But transformation takes time, right? Just one session or reading one book or one quote doesn't do it, right? Growth is a process, and development is a process. Ruth, I think you mentioned, you were talking about you have to take that step and then more is revealed. And I like the concept of, if you were to drive tonight to California, right? If I were to drive tonight from Georgia to California, the headlights on my car don't shine all the way to California. But if I drive to the first bend in the road, then I can see a little bit further, and then I can keep driving. And as I keep driving, I can see a little bit further. And so growth is, I think, the same way. Sometimes we don't really know what the destination is yet, but if we keep growing consistently over time, we can get there. I like to talk about that in terms of, if you imagine a beautiful skyscraper or a cathedral, and every choice that you make is one brick that you can build into that cathedral, right? And you don't have to get all the choices right. You don't have to. James Clear uses the analogy of even an election, you don't have to get all of the votes, right? You just have to get the majority of them. If you're building that cathedral, you're not always going to get it right. So I say, give yourself some grace, but don't miss twice, right? When you get off track, give yourself some grace, and it happens, but don't miss twice. Get right back on track, because you don't want to create a pattern of getting off track, because that leads to habits, and habits can serve you or they can enslave you. They can help you or they can harm you.
You got that right.
Yep, that is absolutely
bad ones like stick like glue. It seems it's the good ones, that's the ones you really have to fight for.
And why are bad habits just easier to create somehow?
No one's ever figured that one out. Yeah, they are. They're so much easier to create. The good ones, not so much. You just really have to work.
Yes.
And those bricks, too, I like that analogy, because when you place a brick, you get an opportunity, or should be looking at what you're doing. You should be paying attention to what you're doing, maybe more than the usual attention, so that you place that brick where it's supposed to be, exactly as it's supposed to be, and you use the right materials. And that is sometimes what we don't do. I think in the world we're told, everybody's in such a hurry to get things done and to get there, wherever there happens to be, that sometimes we're a little careless. And I think that's what I really appreciate too about this worldwide situation, is that individually speaking for myself, it's giving me a chance to slow down and decide what brick I want to use and where I want to place it. You know, so it's more mindful and more intentional.
I love that concept, just being intentional, because we can accomplish so much when we are intentional about it. And, you know, I like that regardless of the cathedral we're building or the goal that we're trying to achieve for ourselves, it's important to realize going into it, we have to push past what I call the point of no results. Right. It's kind of like if you want to get fit, or let's say you want to lose weight. New Year's is around the corner, and there will be people who want to lose weight for a New Year's goal. And so you get up one day and you get on the scale and you're like, oh, today I realize I want to lose 10 pounds. And so you go to the gym and you work out and you come home, and tomorrow morning you get on the scale and you haven't lost any weight, right? And so you go to the gym and you work out, and then the next day you still haven't lost any weight, right? It's easy to get discouraged right there. But what's important is to push past that point of not seeing any results, right? Focus on the right process and the outcomes will happen. But a lot of times we get discouraged when we don't see immediate results. And so we just like, well, I don't see any results, and so I'm going to quit. And it's so important when we are setting our mind to it to just realize if we've created the right process, the right habits, the right system that will get us there, and we consistently work that. See, consistency beats intensity every single time. And if we're just committed to 1% better every single day, it compounds over time.
Yes.
I know I totally agrees with the consistency. Yeah. And it's something that we all have to work at. Again, it's that habit of being consistent in what you do. You know, so Ida, you were getting ready to say something.
She hit a nerve when she said consistency.
Yes.
Yes, because I mean, I've seen consistency over time with the things that we're doing. And, you know, in the beginning, it was rough. You know, and then as I look from that point to where we are now, that consistency paid off, because each time it got better and better. And then we can laugh at some of the silly stuff that happened in the beginning. And, you know, just with this show here, we're international. And it only happened because we was consistent. That's the only thing that happened. And as we continue to do what we do every week, and then the voices that we bringing good content and things that can help people to be better in their skin. Consistency.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh my God. And then I think about where we started and where we are now. And I'm just so grateful. You know, that's all I can say. I'm just so grateful that I didn't get discouraged and stop.
Yeah. So on that note, Ria, can you talk a little bit about your gratitude? I mean, you've had quite a journey. You've had quite a journey. Because it was, that's all I can say. It was quite a journey. Emotionally, mentally, spiritually. How did gratitude, and when did you pick up on gratitude? Because it had to have come from the work that you're doing. I know that gratitude jumped in there somewhere. When did that take root?
Absolutely. I don't know that I could pinpoint a moment where I realized how important gratitude is to us. But I will tell you, I have a morning intentionality practice is what I call it, where I just, the first few minutes of my day are very specific, very intentionally dedicated to setting out my couple priorities for the day. How will I be a little healthier today? And a gratitude practice. What am I grateful for today? Big things, little things, warm, fuzzy socks, it doesn't matter, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because the power of gratitude is not just the moment where I'm thinking, I'm grateful for something that happened yesterday, or I'm grateful for this warm cup of coffee, right? I mean, that's good because it does help us. Scientifically, research has shown how practicing gratitude helps us physically. It helps us sleep better. It helps us be healthier. It helps us improve relationships. I mean, there's so much about that. Most of the research I realized when I wrote my Grateful Heart book and back in 2016 about a gratitude practice for women. But the power of practicing gratitude comes from the awareness that it raises, right? Have you ever bought a purse or a sweater and then suddenly everywhere you go, someone's carrying that purse? Like you walk into the mall and you're like, oh, everybody's got that purse now. I mean, it's not that there's that many more purses or sweaters. It's just that you're more aware of it, right? You're just focused on it a little bit more. So the power of gratitude practice is just that. It's not just the moment when I sit down in my journal and say, I'm grateful for this. It's going through the little moments throughout our day and saying, oh, this happened and it was pretty cool. Let me remember to put that in my gratitude journal, right? Because that's raising our conscious level to be grateful to the little things that happen around us and to us. And that's the power of it, because then it allows us to have those positive benefits all the time, right? Because we're always looking for the blessings, and we can find them. We can also look for the negatives, and we'll find those too. I forget who uses the analogy, but it's looking at a rose bush, and you can focus on the thorns or you can focus on the blooms. And that's so powerful. And I like to say that we don't choose what happens to us, but we choose to be bitter about it or better because of it, right? We can say, I mean, even what happened to me, it's a terrible, awful thing. And I'm not grateful for that, but I'm absolutely grateful for the opportunity it's given me to inspire other people. I don't tell my story so people will feel sorry for me. I share it so that every single other person who's been through something can look at me and say, if she can overcome what she overcame, so can I, right? Mm-hmm. And I can be grateful for that. So it's learning to shift that perspective, and it's powerful. I know you both already, I know you both have a strong gratitude practice already, but it truly is learning to be grateful for what we've got instead of bitter about what we don't have.
Yes. Amen.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you for that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mm-hmm.
And
I know our listening audience is going to hear that and appreciate it.
Yes. And I always believe that, when you're grateful for what you have, you must be, because God will not grant you more if you're not grateful for what He's already given you. Mm-hmm. Because that's being unappreciative.
Mm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that is such a big thing.
It is.
Learning to be grateful for everything. That's always been, not always, but going through some things in my life, at one point, that's what I came to, that I am grateful for all things, not just the good things and lovely things, but even for the difficult things, because I'm still here, I'm still standing. Mm-hmm. So I'm grateful.
It reminds me of the story of Corrie ten Boom and the concentration camps. Are you familiar with that story?
No.
So she and her sister were in one of the concentration camps, and they were both strong, had strong faith, even in their trials and in the concentration camps. And so Corrie and her sister are laying there one night, and they're starving and they're freezing, and they have like one thin blanket, and that it's just a terrible place to be in the barracks. And so her sister says, let's stop complaining. Let's let's just make a list of all the things we're grateful for. We're grateful that we're together, right? It might be terrible, but at least we have each other. We're grateful for this thin blanket, right? It might not be much, but we've got this thin blanket. And, so they start going through their blessings. And in a minute, Corey's sister says, I'm grateful for the fleas biting us. And Corey Ten Boom said, I can't go that far. I'm not grateful for the fleas. And her sister says, no, we're going to thank God for everything. We are going to be grateful for this. Well, unfortunately, her sister passed away just a short time later. And Corey was moved to a different barracks and a different concentration camp. But what she learned as they transferred her was that the flea problem was so bad in those barracks where she and her sister had been, that even the guards wouldn't come in. Like, they never came in and searched for contraband or anything. And so Corey and her sister were able to keep a small Bible that gave them so much hope during their dark trials. But the guards wouldn't come in because the flea situation was so bad. And so she realized that we might not be grateful for the fleas in the moment, but we know that they're there for a reason.
Oh, awesome.
That is very interesting.
Oh, I love that.
I love that. Because had the guards came in, they wouldn't have had the Bibles.
Mm-mm.
They would have took those away.
Yes.
So the fleas was the blessing that helped them to keep the Bibles. Always can find something good in any situation. Any situation. Wow, that is a great story. And again, we are so blessed that you are here. This is definitely, I don't know, I'm just moved right now with the stories, and I'm just moved right now. So again, before we wrap up, can you just tell people again how to connect with you?
Sure. Best way to get in touch with me is through my website, riastory.com. So RIASTORY.com. You can also follow me on social media. I'm on LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. Just search for Ria Story. I should come up, and check out. I put out tons of positive quotes and motivation, because we all need more encouragement, right? We all need to be uplifted. And so I just try to be, conscious about always, sharing something that inspired me, because hopefully somebody else can find some inspiration from it.
Absolutely. And to me, those affirmations is like water. I need that every day. That's the first thing that I've had, different sites that email me stuff, affirmations, Bible verses. So when I get up first thing in the morning, I've got a new Bible verse. I've got a new affirmation that I can read before I get into my day. So thank you for doing that, because that's very, very important to help keep our mind in the right place. Like we talked about before, bad habits are so quick to latch on. The good habits, you got to fight for them.
Yes, that is the truth. Well, thank you so much, Ria Story. Your name fits you so well.
Yes,
fabulous stories.
Well,
and thank you for sharing them with us.
Absolutely, Miss Ruth, Miss Ida. It's a privilege. Thank you.
Absolutely, and you will be back for sure.
Your business, through Just Minding My Business Media, has exposure on internet radio, major social media platforms, and now TV. Through Just Minding My Business, dynamic digital marketing platform. Don't listen to the word on the street. Hear it for yourself. Visit jmb.assistercircle.org to learn how you can take your business, your vision, to the next level. Thank you to the amazing women of A Sister Circle Empowerment Network, ASCEN LLC, and our media partners. Voiceovers by RCH VoiceWorks, for when you want to be heard. Call 443-620-4115.
Thank you for tuning in to Just Minding My Business Radio. I'm your host, Ida Crawford.
And I'm your co-host, Ruth Haskins.
We hope you enjoyed the show and appreciate you stopping by. Many blessings to you and yours.